beginning. It's just chaos. And as chaos was able to see itself, when you put a mirror to chaos, it then contorts. And you have not only the chaos itself, you have the image of the chaos, which chaos can see. So, for example, your first time doing something, you do it however it gets done. The second time you do it, you got the memory of the first time. So then now you can create order in that you can pick and choose what you want to do the same and what you want to do different. So chaos evolves into order in the same way spirituality evolves into religion. In the same way small seeds evolve into large trees. So the the beginning and the end is the same thing. It's a circle. But if you want to understand why it's not portrayed as a circle or not promulgated as a circle, it's because it's not helpful. It's not easy to lead you when you know too much. Like if you know as much as I know, then we equals. And if we equals, then it's like I have no way to subjugate you. I have no way to oppress you. So understanding that we in America right now, slavery happened. I can't say it too many times. As much as Jews remember the Holocaust, black people, African Americans specifically, gotta remember slavery happened. Like never forget. Because slavery wasn't just something that came and went. You feel me? That's in our blood. It's in our veins. And these same forests, like imagine native people lived in this land. This space, you feel me? They knew this land well. European settlers came here and brought slaves with them. And then had this whole manifest destiny mentality, this whole white supremacy, we the best mentality. Now if you listen to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, rest in peace to her, because she made the connection between what Alfred Adler, who was a psychiatrist, said about inferiority complexes with the race dynamics that we experience in America. So Alfred Adler proposed the idea of inferiority and the inferiority complex. And he said that everybody experiences inferiority at some point in their life. However, the complex comes when you feel inferior, so you do the most you can to be superior. And going off the studies done by Gregor Mendel to study pea plants and the notion of heredity, you had dominant and recessive genes. So like dominant genes would be like black hair, brown eyes, dark skin. Um, Recessive genes would be like blonde hair, blue eyes, white skin. And so Dr. Frances Cress Welsing made the connection that, that genotypic inferiority or genotypic rarity, the fact that it's a recessive gene, leads to the superiority or white supremacy or that whole complex where you have people that are dying by the numbers, and they will tell you themselves like the world is getting more and more mixed, and according to how white people set up the rules in slavery, one drop means you what? We black. So in terms of like changing demographics, it's 2017, the inferior, or I wouldn't even use the word inferior to say like I'm better than the next person. I'm saying genotypically, genetically, certain genes are recessive. Like my hair color is recessive. Um, so when you think about it like that, you can see the connection Dr. Frances Cress Welsing was making, is that this group of people is genetically inferior. So going off what Adler proposed, who was a white man, that inferiority becomes a complex because now they do everything they can to feel and to convince everybody else that they are superior, that they are the best. So even Hitler had this whole notion of, these perfect race. perfect Aryan race, blonde hair, blue eyes. Everybody else had to die basically, and that's under Hitler. Now you see Hitler and Margaret Sanger are connected because they both took part in what was called the eugenics movement. And the eugenics movement is basically actions taken based off the notion of the white inferiority complex. So white people understanding that they're genetically inferior have done everything they do to control populations of non-white people. So that results in, for example, the Tuskegee experiments done on African Americans, injecting them with syphilis to see how would they respond to syphilis. They've done skull studies to measure a black person's brain or a black person's skull with a white person's skull, and they would fill them with powder to see which one could hold more. They've analyzed and broken down us to a T to basically suggest that blacks are inferior and whites are superior. And you know, I feel like we've done a great job at transcending through all of that. You feel me? We are roses that push through concrete in our own way, because they literally sterilize our women at Planned Parenthoods as a part of the eugenics movement. Like, and would sterilize them and not tell them that they sterilized. So why do you think so many STDs and STIs are around? What do you think is the intention for HIV/AIDS? And when you think about not only just that, you got to understand genetic inferiority runs deep, because it manifests in myriad ways. You wouldn't even necessarily make the connection unless you woke up. So I'm saying all this to say, you know, for one, unabashed admission. For two, it's about time that we share information in the black community so that we could pretty much counteract or undo the oppression that we've been enduring for years. So the whole eugenics movement never officially ended. Slavery never officially ended. Everything they've done to hurt us started with an intention. And although the practice or the way that that intention manifests might be considered illegal, might become taboo, might become ugly, or they might develop a moral compass where they feel like, oh, we're not going to do that no more. The intention is the seed, and the intention stays. So what does it do? It turns over and it becomes a new form of fashion. So slavery never ended, it became prisons. You get what I'm saying? So you can still be a slave if you're a criminal. How do you become a criminal? You got to commit a crime. Why would you commit a crime? Maybe you can't make ends meet any other way because you're marginalized and disenfranchised socio-politically, so your only resort is to do something that the same people that's calling it a crime aren't the people that's experiencing those circumstances, if you get what I'm saying. Like, people that can easily get a job, do the 9-to-5 route, aren't going to commit the crimes for the people that don't fit into that square of a person to actually fit in those roles. And because, you know, human expression is broader than any one archetype or any one set of actions or behaviors that's deemed permissible or appropriate, you're going to have so many outliers. And who are the outliers in America? Who have the outliers been in America this whole time? Us, for the most part. And, you know, Obama did a great thing. Even if people say like, oh, he ain't do nothing for our community directly or explicitly, or he ain't really come explicit at the issues, he showed us what black leadership could look like, and he showed us an example of a black man doing his thing, handling his business, no scandals, you feel me? So I think that kind of opened the door. I feel like I've got a lot more opportunities since Obama was in office, and a lot more life-changing conversations were had since he was in office. And now that we back to, you know, white supremacists in office, I feel like the call to action has been went out. And now it's not even so much like, oh, we gotta do anything specific, because I don't have no directives to nobody else but me. I'm just sharing information because this is unabashed admission. Welcome to the Museum of Red, and you know, take what you can. The Willie Lynch letter if you don't know, was basically a letter written to white people, from white people, for white people, basically giving them the scoop on how to enslave us and how to make sure the enslavement lasts for hundreds of years. And you got to understand that white people, and not all white people, I'll, I'll be politically correct in saying that not all white people and not every white person. However, historically, white people have been using this manifest destiny concept to the fullest. And they've, as a race and as a community, basically set out to control the entire world, the entire globe, from coast to coast, country to country. And you could look at events such as the Geneva Convention, where these group of people, these group of white men, sat down together to chop up Africa into pieces and say, you colonize here, you colonize there, you colonize there. To go to to come to America and chop up this native land that we see every day into states from coast to coast, and then set up businesses and companies and give them titles like U.S. Postal Service, which is a private business, or just give them these official sounding titles and names to keep the oppression going. So in the Willie Lynch letter, it was very specific about the language you use with your slaves. And the language that we use with each other comes from the language that they've given to us. With the language that they've given to us,